Hey guys, so today I have swatches of the China Glaze Meadow Dreams collection for spring 2024. There are 6 polishes here altogether. You can find these at beyondpolish.com. You can find them other places as well, but I will link Beyond Polish down below. I also have a coupon/affiliate code with Beyond Polish, which will be on the screen in the description box. I will show you some comparisons with other China Glaze colors after the swatches. So 6 polishes altogether, and I will get into the swatches. So the first polish is called What a Dream, and China Glaze describes this as a soft ivory cream. So this one had an okay formula. It was a little bit on the thick side, not terrible, but just leaning thicker. It was a little bit streaky on the first coat, but still very opaque. So if you see a little bit of separation on my nails, the leftover gel that I had on my nails that I keep talking about started like sucking up cuticle oil for some reason after weeks of swatches with no issues. So I ended up having to buff it off this day because it was ruining every swatch. So that is fixed going forward. So this built well for me on 2 coats, but I found that that second coat didn't really level itself out very well. So I would say 2 or 3, just depending on your application. I think this one could have a tendency to be a bit streaky. So that is 2 coats of What a Dream. The next polish is called Mystic Garden, and this is just described as a mint. So the formula on this one was a little bit thinner, and it's a little bit more sheer than What a Dream was, but because of that, it leveled itself out really nicely, which ends up helping it build better in 2 coats, even if it was a little more sheer on the first. So like I said, this built up really well. In 2 coats, it covered my nail line completely and had no streaks, so this was a nice solid 2-coat polish. That is 2 coats of Mystic Garden. The next polish is called Fields of Lilac, and this is described as part periwinkle, part luscious lilac, which I would normally roll my eyes at, but that is very close to what I planned on saying in the comparison section. So good formula on this one. This feels more like Mystic Garden, where it's a little bit thinner and a little bit more sheer on the first coat, but it still levels itself out really nicely. I am being very slow and careful because it is a little bit thinner. I don't want to flood my cuticles. This covered beautifully for me in 2 coats. It leveled itself out really nicely, and it did dry just a little bit darker than when it was wet. So that is 2 coats of Fields of Lilac. The next polish is called Lavender Haze, and this is described as a pastel purple with a sheer pearlescence. Great formula on this one, a little bit sheer, but very even. It has a nice, strong green contrasting shimmer that looks really nice. It's a little bit brush strokey, but that does settle in really well as it dries. And I was actually really surprised at how evident that shimmer is on the nail compared to how it looked in the bottle. I did not think it was going to be this strong. This covered really nicely in 2 coats. I feel like it was still a little subtly sheer. If I really looked for my nail line, I could find it, but I don't think it was nearly enough to need a 3rd coat. So that is 2 coats of Lavender Haze. The next polish is called Meet Me in the Meadow, and this is described as a light lime green-like hue with a, nope, they don't even talk about the shimmer. But they do talk about it making you want to frolic through mystical succulent gardens. So there's that. So sheer, good formula. It is a little bit less even than the last polish. It does seem like it has the same shimmer as Lavender Haze, but because this is also a green base, it's a little more matchy-matchy and less contrasting. This covered pretty well for me in 2 coats. Again, those brush strokes really settle in as the polish dries, although I could see needing 3 for this one, just depending on the application. I really had to float the brush here just to make sure that I didn't dig in and create any uneven spots. So that is 2 coats of Meet Me in the Meadow. And the last polish is called Picking Wildflowers, and this is described as a playful peachy hue, and they don't really mention the shimmer on this one either. I feel like this is also the same green shimmer, but because this is obviously not a green polish, it is more contrasting here and it pops a little bit more. So again, just like with Lavender Haze, I was very surprised at how strong the shimmer was once it got on my nail because it didn't look like it was going to be this strong when I looked at it in the bottle. This built up really nicely for me in 2 coats. As long as you are fairly careful about how you're applying it, you shouldn't have much for brush strokes once it's completely dry. I did have a little bit of nail line if I really looked for it, but I don't think it was enough to worry about a 3rd coat. So that is 2 coats of Picking Wildflowers. Let me just say, I had no idea how many different shades of white China Glaze has put out until I was trying to get these comparisons. It's actually insane. So for What a Dream, I have 2 wheels or 2 sections of this wheel to show you. So the first one is white on white. I think this is like their classic white shade, which is funny because it's really not very true white. You can tell, I don't know if you can tell on camera, but I can tell in person here that this is a very kind of yellowy white shade where What a Dream actually seems a bit more pinky. And they did call it an ivory in the description. I did all of this before I read the description, so that makes sense. This one is Sinful Soul. I think the this is the one that dried matte. This is a much more true white. You can really tell when they're next to each other how much What a Dream is not a true white. This one is Gardenia Dreams. This is from their Eco Glaze line. This is also much more of a true white. And this one is Cabana Fever, which is a little bit pink, but doesn't really, it still looks very, very white in comparison. This is Off-White on Point. This is a jelly white. So, I mean, you really can't even see much color. This is an unpainted section of the nail wheel, so you really can't see much color here. Nothing super comparable. This is Summer Moon. This also seems like a little bit pinky, maybe leaning in a little bit into that ivory territory, but nothing close. This is Blanc Out. This is also more white. And this one is actually one that I passed up in the drawer, and then once I started swatching these and saw this ivory shade compared to these whites, which I had done the swatches on my nails at that point, and this didn't come off as ivory as it does next to all of these whiter shades. And so I passed this one up, and then once I started swatching it, I went back into my drawer and found it again. This is Coffee First, People Later. This is a bit more pink, but I still think it's actually the closest. I would not say that that's an alternative for, or that What a Dream is an alternative for Coffee First, People Later, but it is still the closest. So for Mystic Garden, this first one is Live in the Moment. This is lighter and leans more blue. This one is Partridge in the Palm Tree. This has shimmer to it, and I knew that because I've swatched this before, but I did not see the shimmer in the bottle when I grabbed it, and I was kind of surprised when I put it on my nail that it had so much shimmer in it. So this is darker and shimmery. This one here is Cutie Mark the Spot. This is a much brighter, almost neon kind of minty blue-green. And this one is Spring Jungle. This is close. I just feel like this is a little bit more green, where Mystic Garden is just a touch more blue. This is All Glammed Up. This is very, very close. This also, I feel like, is a little bit more green. It's a little tiny bit brighter, but they are very close. This is Kinetic Candy. This is dustier, more blue and darker. This is At Base Value, and oh my gosh, someone needs to go to jail for this. I forgot how bad some of these old China Glaze formulas are, and just trying to put this on the swatch wheel was a nightmare. It's criminal how bad the formula is on this. And we just put up with it. Like, it wasn't on our radar as bad as it actually is now that our polishes are so much better on average. So anyway, that is much brighter and much more blue. And then this is T-Rex Appeal, which I don't know what I was getting at here, but it comes off very gray in comparison. I may have overloaded this one a bit. So this is Fields of Lilac. I pulled T-Rex Appeal out for this one again as well, which also looks very gray. I also pulled Live in the Moment out for this one again, which is much more blue-green. Okay, so I might have missed something. I'm actually really surprised that I didn't find anything closer to this. I actually ended up going back through my drawers because I was like, there's no way that I don't have something in all of these China Glaze polishes that's closer to this shade. And if I have it, I missed it because I didn't find anything. This is Surfside Skies. This was probably the closest, but still much more blue versus this being purple. And I know I just filmed the voiceover for this, and I was going to refer to this as like a strange kind of color shifting periwinkle because they called it part lilac, part periwinkle. And it really is. I feel like you put it next to a blue and it looks really purple, and you put it next to a purple and it looks really blue. So Surfside Skies is probably the closest, but it's much more blue. This one is A Waltz in the Park, much more purple. This is Are You or Kidding Me? This is very like pinky purple in comparison. And then this is Hydrangea Danger, which is also pretty close. This is a subtle shimmer that you can't really see, but still more blue. Okay, Lavender Haze. Lavender Haze has some splaining to do because I was pretty sure that I had seen it before, and I already filmed the intros to this too, which you'll see in the outro. I talk about Lavender Haze being one of my favorites, and it is because it's a beautiful polish. But what I didn't mention, because my brain had not brought this memory forward yet, is that it's very similar to Bloomphoria over here, which was recent. When did that one come out? Mystic Bloom. Spring 2022, so just 2 years ago, 2 spring collections ago, which is funny because I feel like the kind of vibe for the entire collection is also very similar. I skipped ahead to that one because it's so obvious, but I'll talk about it again in a second. So this is Lavender. This is a cream. I don't know why I grabbed this, but this is a cream polish, so this is much deeper and not comparable at all. This one is Get It Right, Get It Bright. This is much more pink with a totally different shimmer. And then Bloomphoria over here. Is that cat hair? Always. This is practically identical identical. The shimmer in here, pretty sure it's the same shimmer. It might look a little bit more green in Bloomforia, but that's really splitting hairs. And I feel like Bloomforia is just a little tiny bit of a warmer, maybe slightly more vibrant shade of purple, but I mean, they are the same. They're the same. Either someone at China Glaze has the memory of a goldfish, or China Glaze thinks that we have the memory of a goldfish. I'm not even saying you can't do this, because maybe you're not making this anymore, and great, wonderful. We want to see this shade again. Everybody loved it. But like 2 years ago. So if you miss Bloomforia, you've got Lavender Haze. I had nothing even remotely close here for Meet Me in the Meadow. This is Trash Can Do Attitude, which is much darker with a strong gold shimmer. So the only thing that they have in common is that they're both green with shimmer, but nothing comparable. And then I was equally stumped by picking Wildflowers, clearly, because look at this. What is this? So this is Wonderlust. This is pink. It has a more like subtle glowy shimmer. It's nothing even close. And then this, I don't even know. I was just desperate at this point. So this is Glistening Pearls. This is a very light peachy pink with like a shattered glass kind of iridescent flaky in it and a very subtle blue shimmer, but nothing. This was just a waste of everybody's time here. I very, very much like Lavender Haze. I think of my mom whenever I see colors like this because there was a Revlon color in the like late 90s, early 2000s that she was in love with, and she went through bottle after bottle after bottle of it. It was a very sheer purple with like an iridescent shift. It was called Color Flip. And whenever I see any kind of purple with a shifty shimmer to it, I think of her. And I wonder if maybe this is the dupe for Color Flip that she's been looking for. I don't think so, because Color Flip was like very, very sheer, very, very like a glaze kind of topper, and she just wore it on its own. I can hope. And I think of this, think of her every time I see a color like this. So this one ended up being my favorite. I do think it's still like my favorite out of the bunch regardless, but it's extra special because of that. So that is the China Glaze Meadow Dreams collection for spring 2024. Again, you can find those at beyondpolish.com. I will link that website down below. I also have a coupon/affiliate code with Beyond Polish, which will be on the screen and in the description box. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I will talk to you later. Bye.